So, Dr. Luker, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. You're one of our child and adolescent psychiatrists and actually the medical director of our Pathlight program in Denver. And as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, I know you see a lot of kids that are coming in with issues around social media. And just recently, the Surgeon General issued an advisory warning America about the potentially harmful effects of social media. So this is in the news a lot. And I really appreciate you taking the time so that we can talk about this today and understand what this means for families.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that comes up with the vast majority of patients and families I work with. There's always a component, whether it's cell phone use, whether it is social media, and also interactive media use, computers, gaming systems. And it often comes down to parents feel helpless and they don't know how to kind of control or manage it. And so often asking for advice on what they can do to help support their loved ones with this kind of influx of electronic media use.
So it sounds like it's not just, one particular thing, because I think sometimes when people think about social media, the old people like me think about Facebook, but there's newer things. There's the TikToks and YouTube and other kind of platforms. But you also mentioned there's also just screen time, which I think a lot of families have heard of, like from pediatricians when we thought about it just TV, and then we just thought about computer games. But there's a little bit of a difference between that use and kind of this more social media, TikTok, Facebook. Can you talk a little bit about that and help us understand what the concerns are?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is the part of if there's actual interactions with it. So TV, screen time, you're watching, so passive versus actively engaging in it. And I think too, social media, like you said, is been in the forefront a lot because, bullying and seeing these things. So that can also happen when someone's playing Xbox or a video game online and they have their headset on and they're verbally interacting with someone.
And I understand that just a little while ago, you actually gave a presentation with a colleague at the International Association of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists and Allied Health Professionals, specifically on social media and the impacts. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that presentation was and why it was important?
Yeah, so really what we did with that presentation is wanted to understand the history of social media. Um, I think it's obviously something that is in the forefront right now, but it does have a long history. And then we wanted to look at potentially specifically adolescence and brain development and how maybe that could impact that. I think too, with that is being mindful of the content that one is viewing, making sure that it is age appropriate. That's a big thing. I can't remember what it was, but there was this, I think Baby Einstein or something. It came out a while ago, and all these parents were buying it. And what came out eventually over time was that actually Baby Einstein wasn't developmentally appropriate for the people who were using it. And so actually it was a waste of money because it was way over the baby's heads. And so being mindful of whatever interactive media you're using, it's developmentally appropriate. Also talked about the potential positives and negatives of social media and interactive media use. I think a lot of times the potential positives get kind of uh, put under the rug just because there are so many potential negatives that are happening with social media. And then also, we wanted to look at what is next for social media and interactive media use. Now we have companies that we are getting FDA clearance for using interactive media apps for mental health disorders. And so, wait, on one end, we're saying, hey, this is something that is really harmful for people. And then on the other end, mental health care providers and organizations are using social media and apps as a way to treat mental health. And so that was kind of the broad overview of what we discussed for that conference.
So, Dr. Luker, with social media and this kind of rise of disruptive behaviors, when we think about trying to weigh that and see how severe something is, I often think about rating scales. Like for depression, we think about a PHQ-9, and it's got a scale that tells me how severe someone's depression is, or anxiety, something called the GAD-7. Do we have that similar thing for social media?
We have more scales for problematic interactive media use. So think computers, TVs, gaming devices, less so on the social media part right now.
And I guess one of the problems too with social media is it's changing all the time. Like the platforms change. Like, I get made fun of because I think about Facebook as the social media. And everyone tells me that's what, people my age and grandparents use. And so there's always new platforms coming out. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint a certain thing as kind of the standard, right?
Yeah, that has been really difficult. And even to collecting data with social media use, we just don't have longitudinal data. And I think partially it's because things are in vogue 1 minute and then the next minute they change. Facebook is not cool anymore. So now we're doing TikTok, we're doing Instagram, Snapchat. So who knows when those things will change and there'll be something new.
So in the past, kids, could get exposed to things, but it used to kind of be kind of your peer group or you're very local. Like you mentioned, you grew up in a small town. So there was a limit to kind of what you could get exposed to. But with social media now, I can be exposed to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people's views and inputs from across the entire world, almost in an instantaneous manner.
Exactly. And depending on what platform it is, unlimited. So you click on one video, and because how algorithms are set up, then it's going to pop out more videos that are similarly like that. And so you can sit there for hours with this constant feed of things coming up.
So then that becomes almost a self-fulfilling, um, and it kind of keeps you engaged. And that's been one of the issues I think that the Surgeon General brought out is, are the social media companies and technology actually drawing people in and exposing them to more intense or very much more specific things over time than they would have just gotten with a normal browsing the internet?
Definitely. I think that is a problem. I can't remember which social media platform, though they have put their solve for that was putting a time limit. So, after an hour of being on their platform, something pops up and says, hey, you've been on an hour. That is so easy to circumnavigate though. Basically you can click out of it and then once again that feed starts scrolling.
Well, Dr. Luker, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to us about this because I know it's something that a lot of families are worried about, especially for their kids that are suffering from mental illness and seeking help. So thank you for your time today, and I appreciate your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me.